Because I know under each of it's our email addresses, and then I at the end.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, how's it going?
Um, good. So we're having a working lunch while we're doing this. I guess I didn't realize we were actually like running the entire thing. So
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I was about to text you. I was like, I wonder what's going
yeah.
on. So
So I've
got it
got
set
like
up and
1 million people logged in right now.
good, good. That's a
Oh, it
good
is good.
thing. So
It is good.
we'll have we'll make
We
the
had some
most of it.
changes here in the office, and we just didn't capture all the bases that we had to cover for the change. So um, I'll keep letting people in.
Perfect, perfect. Well, I'm ready to go, so we can let people in here, and I'm ready to go.
They're all in. I got about
My
30 and counting.
good deal. Okay, perfect. All right, let me go ahead and do this, and I will.
You got to change this next time. That's all right. It's just the theme for the day.
Can you see my screen?
Yep. I'm going to take the video off because I'm sure
Perfect.
not everybody wants to see us eating lunch. So I guess before we start rolling, Josh, what do you really need from us right now? Just keep letting people in, and
Yeah,
we'll
keep
be
letting people
listening.
in. If you'll help moderate the chat, if you'll help moderate the chat for me, that's all I need.
I will see what I can do about that. Yep.
Yeah. So absolutely, if you can help moderate the chat, that's the thing I want to tell everyone as we get started here. I encourage you to ask questions. I encourage you to, if there's anything along the way, do not worry at all about just jumping right in and type in a question to the chat. If you want to raise your hand, raise your hand. Today is more presentation style. We will get into some hands-on things today, talking about prompting and having those conversations. We'll get more into the uh, pre-prompting and specific tools. We'll do some hands-on here towards the end. There was, if you look in your calendar invite, there was some homework, like kind of pre-prep ahead of time, what to do and how to set up some of these accounts for the, to do the hands-on portion of this. The next session that we do will be more hands-on. We will have some presentation points there as well. But today's primarily presentation, a lot of key talking points, and then jumping into specific, some early on prompting and how to use these tools right out of the gate. So And listen, it's okay. I know some people are not going to mute automatically here. It's not going to throw me off at all, but as they come on, if you can mute them too, as they come in here, that's going to happen. It's no big deal.
Yep, working on it. It's we just had to literally just got our Teams room up and running. It had crashed like all morning. We just got it up and running again, so we're like nothing happened. So
oh, good. Hey, it happened. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here to make the most of our time together today. The focus of today's workshop is AI 101, just fundamentals. And my name is Josh Bone. I'm the Executive Director of ELECTRI International. I hope most of you on this call are already familiar with ELECTRI International, and hopefully you're somewhat familiar with at least our team and what we do. We are the R&D lab arm. We are our own separate entity from NECA. We're born out of grants from NECA contractors, but we don't only conduct research. We develop programs, tools, curriculum to really, what we call it is activating the research. We want to conduct research and we want to do great things there, but it's important for us to, how do we activate that research and help it impact your bottom line? We're always talking about how do we help you operationalize and bridge the gap from academia into your personal business. So if you've never been to electri.org, go to electri.org. You can go to the bottom right-hand corner where you see this flying E in our bottom right-hand corner. There's a chat bot that you can use and access all of our past research. I know we've got some great advocates for ELECTRI out of the Wisconsin chapter, and I can't see everybody in here right now, but I want to thank you guys. Have had Dan Shea as a rep for a long time, and Dan's a great supporter. We've done great research together. And I know he's out there representing us as well as Darren. I know Darren has been a great resource for me and helps our team often. So with that being said, check out electri.org. Really proud of the 36 years of research we have there. Great resources on all different topics. Use that chat bot to find what you're looking for. So what I want to do here is, I feel like a lot of times, I was talking to someone the other day and I had project manager of a NECA contractor sit there and tell me, hey, I'm just excited that AI is not going to happen by the time, in my career, that I'm going to retire. This came from an individual who was in his mid 40s. And I looked at him and thought maybe for a minute he was kidding around. And what I'm here to tell you is that we are living in the future. And you look at the money, you look at the investment, you see where we are today when it comes to AI, the numbers, while Microsoft's pulling back some here, they're trying to go more agentic, and we'll talk about what agents are and what it means to be agentic and the pivot that Microsoft and Google are making, or we can dive into those types of conversations. But what I will tell you is they equate artificial intelligence to be a foundational technology change. I mean, we're talking about a world that fire, electricity, and smartphones, this is going to be of the magnitude of impacting our lives as those three prior events. And when we see the money that's being thrown around into this, and you hear about the data center world and what's happening, what you may not be so aware of, I mean, looking at this quote over here, the data center capex could surpass 1 trillion by 2029. And you look at groups out there today, when it comes to AI investment, it is an arms race. And you talk about not only the data center world, we're talking about creating these computing clusters of using these GPUs. That computing is a very important part of the processing that has to happen. The data collects the data centers, and there's these computing clusters. We've moved from $10 billion computing clusters to now we're already at these $100 billion computing clusters. And Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, who makes ChatGPT, is talking about multi-trillion-dollar computing clusters and what it's going to take to get us to where we need to be. And when I start to if you really want to know if everyone's buying into this, and if you're not quite sure of where we are on the scale of the future, I say it, and I'm not joking. We're living in the future. It's not evenly distributed. But when you see KKR going in and working with Canada's public sector pension and buying up 20% of AEP, which you guys some of you are very familiar with that Midwest utility. Blackstone buying into power generation and buying into utilities. Apollo, these private investment funds, Apollo invested $222 billion into the electrical transition of the United States of America last year in so many different areas. I can show you that private investment is making significant purchases, and it's already been from the regulators in the utility world. They're allowing the Blackstones, the BlackRocks, and the big private investment groups like Bain and Carlyle, and I can go down the list of trillion-dollar investment funds that are buying up to 30% of our utilities. And there's a number of reasons for that, but it's very strategic. It's as I start to look and tell you where we are today, this data center and AI demand, there's a lot of news on this coming out daily. But in general, where we think we're watching is the age of electricity, where the equivalent of Japan's demand on electricity, we're adding that to our grid each year. So electricity demand is set to grow 6 times faster than the total energy demand. This is all coming back to these computing clusters, these data centers, and the edge computing that has to happen around processing that data is looking at massively impacting our grid. Hence why you see these big private investment groups investing into our utilities. They are counting on power demand to play a huge role at the very front end of this. The DOE has already allocated, and this is carried over. The money's is still out there with the new Secretary of Energy in the Trump administration. They've not pulled back on this at all. They've even tried to accelerate this $900 million grant on small modular reactors. It was very focused on light water. Now they've opened that up to pebble bed, light water, molten salt, other types of small modular reactors. And Oklo, our Secretary of Energy he was on the board. Secretary Wright was on the board for Oklo, which is a small modular reactor company that also Bill Gates and many other people are part of that group. And we've already seen up in Darlington, Ontario, the first fully licensed small modular reactor go through the process. There are some behind the scenes happening in the U.S., but Oak Ridge National Laboratories in Tennessee is working very hard on getting their first fully licensed out there in the public small modular reactor project on the books. And you can look at different levels of these. But what I will tell you guys, and this is, if you don't think this is a big deal, I bring all this up in this AI talk because it's very important to lay the foundation of where we're going today and into the next 2 classes. When you see Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, $11 trillion fund, he was at this conference just about 2 months ago, and he said, "What's the 3 things that keeps you up at night?" And the third thing he brought up on his list is we don't have enough electricians to do the work. Now this is a tipping point for us. We are in the right place at the right time. And when it comes to these data centers and artificial intelligence, this is going to create a lot of opportunity for us. You throw in the fact that quantum computing is making some major strides around the technology, and you've got Bill Gates and others out there saying that quantum computing is going to be up and functioning in 2 to 3 years. These are quotes that have been made here in the last few weeks. But by all accounts, I think we can expect to look at quantum computing, the power that it takes. The stars, kind of pun intended here, are really aligning. Even if you've not heard about this, and what's been happening around fusion, All of our nuclear power out there today to power this is tied to fission. Fission is where you split the atoms. It's not nearly as safe. It uses uranium as the fuel. The byproduct is still these spent radioactive rods and different forms of how that process is offset. When you talk about fusion, it uses deuterium, which is more readily available. We don't have to go to Afghanistan and get uranium from them. We can get deuterium, which is a much safer chemical. And instead of splitting, you fuse these things together. The waste as a byproduct is helium, which we can also use as energy to power up turbines. And then you think about the reaction itself between fission and fusion. Fusion is 12 times more powerful than separating this. And you may think, hey, Josh, this is crazy. But I will tell you guys, I am watching this so close, this fusion and what's happening out there. France is the current leader, but there's a lot of nations coming together. We're partnering with Japan. We're partnering with the UK. The United States is making some strides. But I think this is one to watch because this is a game changer in what this means. And the reason I also bring this up is we talk about AI, we talk about quantum computing, we talk about power generation and small modular reactors. We're talking about the potential for a huge need of contractors when it comes to electrical construction and as well as electrical service to operate and maintain these facilities. If fusion hits overnight, you're looking at every boiler, every chiller, every mechanical component that uses any type of fossil fuel moving over to electrical. So it's a game changer when we talk about this. And I bring all this back to the point to kind of tell a story here about what are the impacts of artificial intelligence and electrical construction. Let's have a conversation again, and just know that when we talk about this, by and large, what everyone will tell you is that AI is underhyped, and the way that this thing is moving, if you believe AI is a passing fad, if you believe it's going to take 10, 20 years for AI to really take place, if you're worried about, if you have concerns about Terminator, we'll jump into that in a second, but I will tell you, this is it. I remember hearing in 1996, people were telling me, oh, the internet, it's a passing fad. I remember hearing this up until sometimes in the early 2000s. BIM will go away. We've heard these things, LED. I've heard it about it all. Guys, I'm here to tell you that these are mega facilities. That's why we're probably going to need IBEW is hearing from the Biden administration. They were saying we need 900 small modular reactors. We can bring those up to scale a lot faster than 90 huge powerhouses. So with that, what we've got to look at here is when it comes to AI, there's a couple of things that you need to understand and break it down. That this is still math. It's still these machine learning algorithms are math problems, and we'll talk about what a large language model looks like and pre-train versus you've got different types of tools and how you train them. But what's so crazy about AI is that it mimics thinking, learning. It basically mimics human thought, and the way that it learns, the way that it can comprehend language, vision, hearing with machine learning tied to computer vision, tied to these large language models, even the ability to do coding. We are there, and the technology is only getting better. If you look at it and break down what's happening with AI, they've came out with a new model, and I just saw this the other day, that this new model that they've been testing is in a matter of no time, basically ChatGPT went from scoring on this, it's the deep research model of scoring. It's called the human, let's see here, but it went from 9% a score to 26.6% score on humanity's last exam. And so in a period of 12 days, it increased its performance on the test by 183%. And we are at a stage now that when you start to go back to ChatGPT when it came out in October of 22, it went from being a kindergartner to today to being a PhD level student. And while you may be concerned with Terminator, I bring good news to this call today. Only about 1% chance that this happens. I know 1% for Terminator is scary, but Ray Kurzweil, one of the guys I really believe is not so much an optimist or a pessimist. He is the Nostradamus of predicting technology. He will tell us that there's only a 1% chance that Terminator happens. I've always thought it was going to look more like Wall-E and where it was going to go, but I'll tell you, when you have a chance to learn about Ray Kurzweil's The Singularity is Near, it's talking about brain-computing interface. And I'm not talking about necessarily it being exactly like Neuralink and what Elon Musk is doing. There's a lot of money being thrown at brain-computing interfaces, and they tell us the future of AI is humans and AIs coexisting, being connected together. And I know that might be scarier in some ways than even Terminator. But if you didn't know what's the alternative to artificial intelligence, what is it trying to truly combat? Natural stupidity. So there's a lot of that out there in the world today, and hopefully artificial intelligence can help us with some of that. But with some kidding here, guys, we are at a point today where AI is being used for computer vision to stop California's wildfires. If you go back and look at naturally occurring wildfires over the past 3 years, it has made a massive dent, predicting certain types of cancer, seeing cancer, pancreatic cancer 3 to 4 years before it can be diagnosed by a doctor, breast cancer that doctors just cannot see. These tools are training our doctors to be better. And there's so many open models out there. If you've not heard about AlphaFold and how it can map out proteins of viruses, and this is an open source tool. AlphaFold, if we had more time, would be an interesting conversation, and maybe that's for a future day. But even Google's model for weather predictions, it's only been out there a couple of months, and it's outperforming the European model and the American models, predicting further out, getting more accurate in predicting where deadly storms are when they're going to happen, at what point and place they could potentially happen. Life-saving events here in both cases. Just a vocabulary lesson here for all of you on the call. When you hear Gen AI, that's where we are today. Gen AI is lesser than AGI, and that's artificial general intelligence. That AGI is what people refer to as Terminator, as this self-aware, that it is really self-learning. You don't have to worry about the pre-training, the post-training. There are some great minds out there that say this is 10 or 12 years away. There's also a lot of great minds out here saying that this may never happen. I think we're somewhere, getting even closer to an AGI. We're probably a couple of decades or potentially more away. Again, when you want to know what AGI is, that's that strong AI. Today we're dealing with basically what is Gen AI. It's weak artificial intelligence. So, and just to give you some practical examples of where we are in the world today, Microsoft just announced this 2 days ago. They're about a quarter of all of their code is now being written by Microsoft. Google has their CEO announced this about a month and a half ago, that almost more than a quarter of all new code written at Google is now AI generated, and it is accepted by our engineers. Hence why you've seen some of the layoffs over the last couple of years around Google and Amazon, and where the code writers, just the need for those numbers are no longer there. I still think coding is going to be very important. I believe no code, low code solutions are going to be more adaptive, and it's going to make it easier, especially, and have more impact around our world in electrical contracting. Real quick, just another thing to look at here and help you understand the scale of how this is happening. One of the things that, if you've never heard of Moore's Law, Gordon Moore was the CEO of Intel. And roughly 50 years ago, he said, hey, I see the number of transistors on a microchip can be doubled. So we can put twice the amount on the same size of a transistor, double the number of transistors on the same size microchip, and the cost is halved about every 18 to 24 months. And for the most part, that formula has held up. And the reason you see a lot of this happening today is around these, going back to these computing clusters. 6 years ago, I had a chance to learn about IBM's Summit computer in Oak Ridge. It at the time did 200 petaflops, which is 200 quadrillion floating operations per second. If you take the entire world's population, it would take 305 days to do what Summit can do in 1 second. We won't get too much into GPUs, but I will tell you, when you're looking at humans think more like a CPU, linear thinking, and you look at where we are, this last frontier was the fastest computer up until about 2 months ago. It could do 1 quintillion processes per second. And then today, the fastest computer in the world is El Capitan. It's out in the Lawrence Berkeley laboratories. This is owned by the Department of Defense and shared with the Department of Energy. And its whole entire focus of the fastest computer in the world today is focused entirely on cybersecurity and preventing cybersecurity hacks, and it's trying to make our world safer when it comes to cybersecurity. So, and just to wrap your head a second around that quantum computing, you saw how El Capitan, well, it was marginally faster, 1 quintillion. It added another decimal point to the number of exaflops that it can do. But take into consideration that quantum computing is closer to 150 times faster than El Capitan. So, I mean, guys, we're talking about, again, multiple stacks of tipping point, foundational change happening at the same time. Yes, there's a question here. I see a hands up.
Josh, I was going to ask you, how do you not disrupt the flow of your
No, you can't mess me up. You can't mess me up. Jump in. Just stop me, Josh. Say, Josh.
So, all right. So I can either have them do chats, or I can see that John Reedy has raised his hand. Do you just want to take them as they come, or how would you like to?
Yeah, take them as they come. We'll take a minute here and stop before we move to the next phase. John, you can just speak up, and then you can read out the other ones.
Sure. I was just wondering if someone's recording this.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So I can get a copy to share with my group here?
Yeah,
You're welcome to share anything I have.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I saw you in Minneapolis, Josh, and you did great there. You're doing great again. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, what we'll do, guys, for everybody on this call, we will record, or we are recording these sessions, and then we'll send out a link to them where you'll be able to go and download it later. So hopefully that helps with any questions that will come up, bro. That's all I have. I don't see anybody on the chat, so you are good to go.
Okay. So let's start breaking down some more important language. And again, this is just an introduction, a 101 fundamentals, some things that you need to understand when it comes to language, like robotic process automation. When we talk about these things, all of these operate as agents. Think about AI. Artificial intelligence is the genius in the room. It's that person that is extremely intelligent, smart, and just consumes information. And think of Sheldon Cooper, right? Sheldon Cooper is a perfect example of the human version of AI. Now, where it starts to have problems with AI, and this is where we're at today, is this new term agentic. And what is an AI agent? It's actually taking technology now and applying agents that use the knowledge from AI, but apply it towards real processes. So whenever you hear Microsoft is going to be spending more time and more energy focusing on agentic solutions. So what is an agentic solution? Well, It's trying to take that AI now and use that information and solve a real world problem. So what do we mean by that? There are different processes and flows. When I say robotic, you need to throw out of your brain that robots mean an actual physical robot. Robotic can be software. So it can be a software component that is tied to and can automate different steps. You use artificial intelligence that can now, let's break this down for you so you understand what it means. There are agents that can sit in your Outlook, and what they can do based off training, based off looking at information, that they're specifically looking for invoice or certain descriptors as it's reading your emails to identify that it is an email that has an invoice in it, and to be able to take that invoice and move it over into your ERP. Now, what it has to do is open up that PDF voice, and it doesn't understand information, it can kick out and go create an alert that can now be prompted to say, here's this. I've got 99% of this recognized, but I'm not sure what this is, or I'm looking for this and I can't find it. That AP clerk can open up the software in a cloud-based version. They can say, oh, here's that number. So they're training it as they do it. And then it can go back to invoice data as soon as it gets 100%. Then it can automatically pull all that data right into your accounting software, take all those invoice details, and now create a three-way matching. Again, if it has a problem, it can't recognize something, that's where you can now kick it back out. Hey, alert, I'm looking for information. The AP clerk can then review that. So it can be a project controller, it can be whoever in your office is representing that step. It doesn't have to go to the CFO or the CEO, but it can be, again, trained and go into send invoice for approval. The approval goes through automatically. The approver says send, and it sends that out and goes through that process of receiving or sending invoices. And it's a very specific tool that sits over your email, your inbox, that can go in and it be attached to your outbox, but it's serving a real purpose, and all that knowledge, all that information, that's an example of robotic process automation. Now, one of the terms you hear a lot about is machine learning, and then the other term is deep learning. Just understand that there's actually not a lot of difference. It's just that machine learning is more, the way the data sets work it's more narrow, it's more focused, it is a subset of deep learning. Deep learning is looking at more you're getting into deeper learning and pulling in more information and of different layers that can be set up here. A simple type of machine learning is what you'll hear with these neural networks is there's an input layer, there's all the hidden layers, and then there's output layers. You can control, just so you know, if I'm looking at IBM's Watson is trained very specifically using machine learning on very focused data sets. It's going to do weather predictions. It's going to look at large data sets for humans, but for it may be 100 million points of data, whereas ChatGPT, the way they're training theirs, may be 1 trillion points of data and how this all works. Now, the reason I show you this is so important, and it may sound like, hey, you're asking a question. This feed forward and model doesn't have a post-training. It could have a pre-prompting, pre-trained, and then it uses these hidden layers to generate outputs. Then there may be post-training out here as well. But this feed forward and type model is artificial neural network, and is one of these models. And basically how it works, and this is what you need to understand as you're getting ready to prompt. For those of you that don't use AI on a daily basis or a very consistent basis, yeah, one of the things that you're probably not trying to connect as you communicate it with it more and more is when I think about these input and these hidden layers, it's all math. It's all weighted averages. For example, if something as simple as will I eat dessert tonight? Well, based on the fact right now, my desire, my current weight, and my cost. Yeah, some days it might be cost. That's a heavier weight. Other days it might be desire. And it's how I prompt this and put this in. If I go in and I say, hey, listen, I'm just coming off Memorial Day holiday, and I will tell you my desire plays a heavy determination in this. You know, as far as my current weight, it's going to play a heavier role coming off the holiday weekend, and cost, you know what, doesn't mean as much. When you start to break this down and when you're prompting and you're giving it these descriptions based off how you start to set this up and pulling from these hidden layers, trying to make that decision based off this, the weights, the numbers, and how these things. So when you're asking for certain things in your prompt, you have the ability to put more focus. You know, my primary focus is this, my secondary, my third. When I'm thinking about a question that I would ask today, when I'm breaking down a project, a job, and I really want to think about what project I would take on today, maybe different than I would have pre-pandemic, I'm taking into consideration labor risk, number one. Now I'm taking into consideration my material risk, number two. And then third, maybe it would have been a top one in the past, but now I decide that it's a specific clause that I'm looking for, liquidated damages. Maybe liquidated damages would have been a higher priority in the past, but today it's my labor risk. Well, now, you know, my outcome may be a lump sum versus a GMP. Is that gross maximum or gross minimum price, as opposed to I'm trying to get that language. So what I'm trying to tell you here is, as you're getting used to prompting, you've got to be smart enough, intelligent enough to know what ultimately the problem are you trying to solve. I give the example, I did an email a few months ago, and I didn't have time to go back and forth with this, and what I was ultimately wanting to do is show that I have the knowledge of this topic, and I don't want to get into a back and forth of this. I really want to nip it in the bud. I put that in my prompt, that my goal here is to come back with an answer that's professional, that's thoughtful, that is positive, but at the end of the day, I want to knock their socks off because I don't have time to come back to this. And that's the way you got to start thinking. I said this year, January 1st, my goal is to listen more and ask better questions. And I can tell you, when you hear people saying that AI is making you less of a critical thinker, I would challenge that. I don't know what yes, my son takes AI and he copies his question and pops it into Chat GPT and then copies and pastes the answer from in there. Yeah, that will dumb you down pretty quickly. If that's what you're doing, it will hurt you. For me, I find that as I start to think about this, I even think about it how I have conversations with individuals and understand, you know, really try to listen. And as I listen, come up with good, thoughtful questions. I'll give you a link here from a QR code that you can look at by the end of this. But the goal, the context, the persona, these are simple things, but things that you need to be very, very intentional about as you're prompting. You know, also, one of the things we have to address here as a group is this term of hallucinations. You know, if I'm looking to not deal with hallucinations, I'm going to go to Perplexity. Just be very honest with you. Perplexity is trained on news, and it's more factual. And if I'm looking to ask a question, let's say I'm going to look at, you know, I'm going to come into Wisconsin And in Wisconsin, I'm going to look at what would be an ideal microgrid on the right subject. Maybe I'm looking at being able to do an OPEX cost to a local high school system. What's their average cost for their monthly electricity? Okay, it's $80,000. What do I have readily available? What's a better solution to offset some of that power? I'm going to go to Perplexity. I'm not going to go to OpenAI. I might go to Grok and be very specific. I'll still ask for references. I will ask for it to not give me misinformation. But there's a lot of solutions here in how you want to prompt to avoid hallucinations in your prompt, to cite references, to give me links. And just so you know, Reddit is not a credible is not a credible resource for you. If you're getting the data from Reddit, or you're getting that data from even Wikipedia, you might want to question the information that you're getting. So, but there are techniques, there are steps and things that you can do to limit hallucinations and at least learn how to be able to identify those and self-check. Some tools are better than others. And as for these large language models, often referred to as LLMs, this is the current state of where we're going to be spending a good bit of our time over the next couple of webinars and the rest of our time here today. But I want you to understand, when you're looking at these, I will tell you, when it comes to Perplexity, for example, I would not pay for the version of Perplexity. Doing the paid version of Perplexity, it's actually in some ways cheaper to do Perplexity because I still get access to so many different types of prompts that I can do. So the number of prompts that I would get from a Perplexity, I may get it cheaper through Perplexity than even doing ChatGPT and using their 4.0 model. But there's many models. Each model has different strengths and weaknesses, but these models are constantly changing. Gemini 2.5, changed the game when it comes to reasoning in this last update. It actually, if I was going to look at a contract and do contract review and try to get something where people say, oh, ChatGPT is better. Well, you know what? It really was up until a few weeks ago when 2.5 Gemini came out. And if I've got to have it do reasoning over a contract, a document crunch, will even pivot from time to time. They may use as their background model ChatGPT, but they're maybe using Gemini 2.5. So
Depends if
there's
it's
different models and they're
full.
always changing. So so they're always changing all the time. Bard was out there and Bard was the way to go. We're always updating this list, but I will tell you, feels like in the last 2 months, whether it's Poe or it's Copilot or Claude or Gemini, when the newest version of Claude came out, it was a game changer. When the last version of Grok came out, it was a game changer. I use Grok almost probably 80% of the time there for about a month and a half, and I know I'll go back to it again at some point in time. So it's always a changing model. One of the things we'll talk about today is how do you get a few of these in there and actually test across multiple models and start to learn what's best at what time. So wish there was an easier solution on that for you, by the way. Guess what? This is going to be a moving target throughout going forward. Real quick, when you hear ChatGPT, when you hear that GPT, what does that mean? It means it's a generative pre-trained transformer. So what does that mean about ChatGPT? It's a pre-trained transformer. It's a pre-trained model. It's really, it will take data and collect data into its data sets that it will then go back in and pre-train ahead of time. There's settings that we'll go through later on, creating a chat bot and what you need to do. But just understand that it's a pre-trained model. There is no post-training. You can collect data and it can come back in, and there's certain things you can do. But go back to GPT 4.0, it was trained on about $100 million. GPT 3.0 was trained on about $10 million. GPT 5.0, rumor is it's going to be trained on $1 billion. And again, they have such large hidden layers That can sometimes be a good thing or a bad thing. Each of these models is using different controls. And if you do pay for the $20 a month for ChatGPT, the fully licensed version, which I would highly recommend that you do at some point in time. Now, in your pre-homework, you can go set up a free Google email just to protect yourself. If you don't feel confident using any of these large language models, that's okay. Create a separate email account. Go put this in Gmail or wherever you like to set yours up. But I would recommend it at some point in time, paying $20 1 month and looking at these thousands of different tools. Now, what you'll learn about these tools, I may go in and use Diagram Show Me, and Diagram Show Me may be amazing for 2 months. Now, if it gets enough traction, they may say, hey, we're getting a lot of traction. We're going to point people there. We're going to start charging for the added features of, we'll work to a certain level. We'll have a freemium model with ChatGPT. But if you want to make a more detailed slideshow like you were using Canva or Slide Maker, Consensus is one I use because there's 200 million academic papers there that are all indexed and makes it easier to find what I'm looking for. I find it, and sometimes it's better than Google Scholar, or I'll come back into Consensus. These tools, again, are always kind of coming up with new features, new workflows, new capabilities. But a lot of the tools that you're using today are creating workflows with ChatGPT to enhance ChatGPT's ability to be agents on creating slideshows, to create process maps, doing other things. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot at you here, and that's it. We're here to help going forward. I will tell you, if you want to scan with your phone right now on the screen, we've got an AI tool list, and we're constantly updating that. We've got the ELECTRI resource library here as well. But you can scan those, and I can provide links on the back end of it. But these are tools that we'll continue to update and try to stay on top of this and providing tools and resources. We are working with NECA's education group to create what we're doing here on this webinar series, like it's coming through your chapter. We're working on creating these in bite-sized, more focused pieces. How do you do pre-prompting? How do you use ChatGPT for this? How do you use Gemini 2.5 for this? What about Claude? We're going to work with NECA's education team and keep coming out with these, because it's nobody has this figured out. It's going to be a moving target, but a lot of opportunity here. All right, the number one thing I want to be able to get accomplished here today, if you've not done this on your phone already, if you've not done this, whether you're Android or iOS, if you have questions or are concerned, go set up a new Gmail account, go set up a new email, do whatever you have to do. You can use different browsers. If you want to be more secure, you can use a Brave and log into ChatGPT through Brave. But if you're an iOS now, you're starting to realize if you've not activated ChatGPT through your Siri capabilities and the new Apple intelligence, they recognize they're not even close to where they need to be. So now they've integrated ChatGPT with Apple intelligence. You've got Gemini. If you're a Google Office, I would highly recommend Gemini. If you're a Microsoft, I would say, go. If you're Microsoft, I would say go ChatGPT, go Perplexity, go Copilot. Today, if you're a Google Office, I would say do probably ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Gemini. I love Claude, and for language, for conversation, it's superior. If you're doing coding, Claude is still, in my opinion, one of the best. Gemini's making some big strides there. Grok's making some big strides there. For deep learning, I was using Grok. I probably would rethink that today based off of, with some of the other things changing. But I would get 3 of these on my phone. If you looked at my phone right now, I can assure you that I've got all of these downloaded on my phone. And I probably use Perplexity when I'm just trying to find something very quickly. But there's, if I was going to give you one to use at home, Perplexity is a really good one to, whether you're trying to find a store and you're trying to find something specifically, Perplexity's the back end engine for what you see on ChatGPT's web search. Perplexity's big in the news, big on the web searches. So, real quick, just to try to avoid some things here, I think everyone needs to process this is, what data should I not share? This is it. If you can stump me and say, hey, listen, there's something out here, this is what most people tell you. Don't share personal identifiable information, financial payment information, security information, proprietary information, confidential business information, employee data, health information, legal regulatory compliance data, classified government restricted information, any data covered under an NDA or contracts. Yes, that's a lot, but trying to summarize that, if you're still really concerned about artificial intelligence, there's a lot of people out there using it daily. I usually can't make it by 8 a.m. before using it myself on any given day. So those are the things you need to pay attention to. Now for the hands-on component, I will tell you, just to give you an example of how AI works. If you go to your photo album on your iOS or Android device and you go to search, when you go to search in your photos, you can type in sunset and it will tell you how many sunsets, but you can say red baseball cap. You can say red baseball caps outside. You can say, if I take a picture of a document and there's something in that document, let's say I'm looking for core values of an electrical contractor's name, I can go type in core values, and everywhere I've taken a picture of core values of contractors, all those images, it's not because I tagged it, it's not because I did that, it knows I'm in Louisville, Kentucky when I took the picture. It knows based off reading the image and indexing it that there was language in there of core values. And it doesn't know sunset, but if you type in sunset versus sunrise, you'll see on your phones, just in that photo app, if you're trying to find things, the image recognition, Google is the best when it comes to Gemini. If I'm trying to go out and I want to take a picture of something, if I'm looking at anything there, I can touch on it on my photos too, and I can do look up. So I can look it up and I can see if I'm trying to go back in here and I'm trying to go back into the picture, and let me do this here. Each of you have the ability to cancel that. So whether it's a picture of a piece of equipment, you can look it up. You can do as far as what type of animal it is or what type of bush it is. You're seeing a lot of that now starting to appear automatically. So you have the ability to set up your family and names, and if you're set up their names or your family members, or go to a person and just train it one time, it can go back, and as that person goes from being 3 years old to however long you've had your smartphone, it continues to update those. It knows on my 9-year-old from when she was a baby to what she looks like now, even though there's some resemblance there. It's learned over time, my daughter and what she looks like. Another thing here, so on the Android device here too, you can see if I get ready to go down here and I go to click on that button, you can see here I can use these different components by just coming down here, and I can go back into my photos selected, and I can go get ready to come back in PDF. There's a lot of capabilities here to where I can go in and search on Google. But if you just come back in there to an image again too, you can click and do the lookup on something in the picture. So if you're out on the job site, you have the ability now to take a picture of something, look it up. And if you're using Google, you're using Google imaging, There's a lot that you can do. You'll see here on this image that extract text with Microsoft 365 Copilot, different settings and things that we can set up and use. Any questions or any comments? If you did not know this,
One question.
hope, yeah.
Hi, Josh. So earlier you mentioned that Gemini was potentially a good AI option for contract review, but then in your list that you shared a couple slides ago of, obviously some of that sensitive information we wouldn't want to share to AI, point 4 was kind of all about contracts. Where do you think we draw the line for that sort of confidential information, and when would you utilize an AI tool like Gemini for that contract review versus when do you need to be a little bit more cautious about that?
You have the ability to take certain parts of the contract. If you're under NDA, I would be very careful. I might even look at redacting it, but I could take pictures of it on my phone and I could upload it. It's so under NDA, I would still say that you could go in there and you could take certain information and you could very quickly redact it. There are tools like Black Boiler. We'll get into this in the next talk about how there's different areas or different tools that you could use, and you could go in and you could use it as a redaction tool. But I would just say if you're under NDA, if there's any proprietary information, me personally, if I'm doing a contract, I'm not under NDA, it's a public bid out there. If I'm trying to understand or look at certain things in language, I'm going to play pretty fast and loose. Just knowing that I want to look at language, I want to have the ability to look at, what language should I use to. I'm not. But there's certain projects out there. We could maybe even have a debate around how you need a specific instance. But a lot of jobs I know that are public jobs, I don't put it out there.
You're cutting in and out, bud.
Oh, I'm sorry. Has it been good up until now?
You're good for up to about maybe 15 seconds ago, maybe.
Okay.
But I think we got the gist.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, it's a great question. It really depends on the contract and what I will share and upload. If I see something that's a specific clause, I may redact that one clause, put it in and do some more searches and try to get some feedback on it.
Fair. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'll tell you guys, if you've never used this capability, if you take a picture of this with your phone right now, and then so when you take a picture and then you open up that photo, you could do a search by it. It may take a second to index it, but if I went in and later on I typed in assembled in Vietnam and I typed that in, this image would show up later. But if you've never used QR, if the different types of product codes, if I'm looking at a light fixture and I need to quickly search it, I can take a picture of it, then go into my camera and go into my photos and then just click and hold on that text. You'll see on an Apple, you have the ability when a document has text in it, it will show, you have the ability to zoom in on it. In the bottom right hand corner, it looks like text. So this little button here that you'll see that shows all that text. But if I just zoom in, I can click and hold, and I can click and hold, and I could copy paste that PIN number, that serial number, that my VIN number on a truck, as opposed to having to go in and type that back in. I'll take a quick picture of it, click it, hold it. I have the ability to translate things as well. So we've got translation capabilities. If you've never used those features on your phone and gone in and looked at text and clicked and held, it's if you're driving and listening to this, probably not the best thing to do. But it's simple tools, that low-hanging fruit that all of us should be using on a regular basis. With all AI, the thing I will tell you that I think I've cultivated over the years of using it is when I see something happen, a lot of times I may come back and say, oh man, I wish I'd have taken a picture of that. My wife, I love her immensely. She's never missed the opportunity to take a picture for something in her life. She is always thinking of pulling out that phone, taking a picture of it. Now, if I ask her, she'll ask me a question. She's trying to do something. I put that in Chat GPT. Well, it doesn't sound good. Make it sound less professional. Make it sound more casual. She never has a problem pulling out her phone when it comes to taking a picture. I never have a problem pulling out my phone when it comes to AI. And coming back to this is the thing. I'll come back to this. We'll come back to it the next time around, but I'll tell you guys this. This is kind of the parting gift that we'll do some Q&A here. And I'll start right back here as we get into the next session. But these prompting guidelines, remember what I said, the goal, the context, the persona, the simple do's and don'ts. But I want to come back here for, if I got a text, I'll go back to my wife. Hates deciding what to do as far as making dinner. And if she asks me, what do you want for dinner? And I copy it and I paste that out. What do I want for dinner? And give me into perplexity. And it'll give me some options, but it's a pretty wide array. Remember going back to prompting. What am I in the mood for here? What do I want to do? What's my ultimate goal here? My ultimate goal is to get this off my wife's plate because she does not want to have to think about what needs to be made for dinner as she's thinking about it. So I, being the good husband that I am, what's a good dinner option that is quick and quick to make and easy to clean up? And then taking it a step further with that prompt, if I'm really looking for something, you know what, I'm in the mood for a little bit of a Hawaiian flair, add that in. My outcome, now I've already told it that I'm looking for dinner and it's still quick to make and easy to clean up, but has that Hawaiian flair. Now, if I want it to be Hawaiian, I would say I really want to go Hawaiian strong, but even though with this, the way I've set this up, is this going to give me a Hawaiian meal that's going to be quick to make and easy to clean up. You've got to start thinking in this manner, and we can come back into these, and if you've not had the chance to download these apps, download 3 of those apps. We'll go back to it in a minute, but again, too, this is something I want you guys to think about as you're starting to test and doing your homework coming out of this class. Is you're going to have Perplexity. If you're Microsoft, you're going to have Copilot. If you're Google, you'll have Gemini, and then get Chat GPT. You don't have to pay for it. You can set up a free email address to be able to go in this. But as you take an email from your inbox, copy it and paste it. You can do it on your laptop. You can do it on your phone, copy and paste. Remember, we have text. We just click and hold on that text. If no one knows what I mean by that, if you've not gone into a picture and clicked and held on that text, or it's the same thing in a picture as it is on your inbox, say reply to this email. Next one, come back and make it more concise. Come back and now say, make it more professional. Each prompt within a Chat GPT is based off the previous prompt. Trying to use some of the other guidance that it will give you in Perplexity and Chat GPT now is a good thing. But going through this list here of taking an email, reply to this email, then make it more concise, make it less professional, make the reply more positive, add some colorful language. And you might need to, when you say colorful language, let's see what Chat GPT means when it says colorful language. It may make you sound not like yourself, but that's where you can come back and say, okay, that's not what I want to do, or maybe that does sound more like me. But what you're trying to do is make sure you're driving to a point. What am I ultimately trying to get out of this email and this reply? I may need to, in my conclusion, make sure you drive this point home. Maybe mention this in the intro, but really drive this point home in the conclusion. What most of you are going to be guilty of is going in and you're going to say, okay, let's reply to email. You'll get that reply to email and you'll be like, that is so good. I'm good. I'll just send what's there. But you may need to, over time, you'll start to say, okay, make it more professional, less professional. These are some basic prompts that I'd like for you to try on your phone using the apps. And we'll start to get into some of the text and some of the conversational points next time. But I hope you'll go back in, download at least 3 of these tools, and start using them between now and the next webinar. Using the text capabilities, reply to text, thinking about how you can make it better each time with the prompt engineering, and then email going there. But with that, we're already a couple minutes over time. Is there any Q&A?
I don't see anything in the chat, so I think we're clean there. I think it helps that we're recording it, so we will send out an email to everybody with the link in a couple days once we get that all set up, so you'll have access to it. Josh, I appreciate all this. It looks like our next one is set up for next week at noon, yeah?
That's right.
Outstanding. All right, well, thank everyone. Yeah, it looks like we're good.
Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I hope everyone had some good takeaways. Nobody's too scared.
No, I'm oddly in the mood for Hawaiian right now, so I'm gonna go check.
Hey, I wonder where that came from.
Yeah.
See you
All right.
guys. Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you.